After leaving Beppu, I traveled 4 hours north to Osaka, where I met Muho Nolka, a German Soto Zen teacher. Muho ordained as a monk over 30 years ago and served as the abbot of Antaiji Temple for 18 years. He now lives in Osaka and teaches meditation regularly at Osaka Castle Park.
Was the Buddha and what did he teach? I could imagine that every Buddhist has their own idea of who the Buddha was, what he really taught, what really Buddhism is all about. And I think it's okay that everybody has their own idea. In my case, when I think about the Buddha and about his kind of original question, I think about myself when I was 7-year-old. So I kind of see the Buddha through my own eyes, and I think that's okay. So for me, the Buddha is somebody who questioned the meaning of his life. He felt he was suffering, and that's something that is also speaking to me. That was the case for myself. Life is, well, not satisfactory. You're never completely satisfied. Why is that? Because you always want it different than it is. You always want the things that you can't have, and the things that you have are exactly those that you don't want to have. That goes for people, that goes for things, that goes for everything in your life. It's never exactly the way you want it. And then the traditional Buddhist view would be, well, the reason why it is that way is because you have attachment, but there's the Eightfold Path to deal with that attachment, to reduce the attachment. The more you reduce the attachment, the more you get liberated. From my perspective, I would say the way to liberation is to, first of all, how do you say, really get into contact with the suffering, accept the suffering, rather than say, I suffer because I'm attached, so now I need to reduce my attachment. I would say, really get absorbed by this suffering, and the moment you get absorbed in the suffering, you often realize, actually it's not so bad. Life is not the way I thought it's supposed to be, but it doesn't have to be the way it's supposed to be. Or for example, one example would be pain. When you sit for long hours, often you feel pain. Pain is the, how do you say, the way suffering, or dukkha as it's called in India, unsatisfactoriness manifests as pain during sitting. How can you be liberated from pain? By just being in pain without doing anything. So you even try to stop, to reduce the pain or get out of the pain. And then there are all those moments where you realize, okay, there's pain, but actually there's no problem with that. You could say in a way, there's pain, but there's nobody who's feeling the pain, or it doesn't hurt anymore. There's the pain, but it doesn't hurt anymore. And I think the same is true about all of suffering. So you just accept suffering at face value, but then you realize there's no problem with it. Until then, you thought, well, I have a problem with my suffering, I need to do something about it. And in my view, when the Buddha, after 6 years of ascetic practice, just sat down under the Bodhi tree and sat, he did exactly that. He stopped trying to deal with the suffering. He even didn't try to reduce the suffering anymore, but he sat with the suffering and he saw the morning star and realized, oh, that's it. That's it. And to make the thing more, well, customer friendly in a way, he invented maybe the Eightfold Path, or maybe it was even his disciple who invented this, well, custom-friendly 8 steps to liberation, and then you have the 12 fold chain of mutual dependent origination, and you have, I don't know, 53 steps to bodhisattvahood. But for me, it's basically about this, just sitting in the state of unsatisfactoriness. And in that moment, actually, nothing is missing anymore. You realize nothing was missing from the start. So, that for me is Buddhism. But I'm not sure if that's what actually the Buddha taught. But to be honest, I don't care so much. So, the Buddha famously claimed that life is suffering, or to be more precise, the word he used is dukkha, which means, well, unsatisfactoriness. I heard that one explanation of the term is that it makes a wheel where the axis is broken, or it's, how do you say, out of center. So the wheel is turning, but it's not turning exactly right. So if you're sitting on a car and it's always making this hubble, so it could be more perfect, but it isn't. And the Buddha first names 4 examples of this dukkha, unsatisfactory. First is birth into this world. And a lot of people might, well, be wondering, why should a birth into this world be something we shouldn't be satisfied about? And maybe some people are so happy about their lives that they don't feel that might be something unsatisfactory. But a lot of people, and that's also true for myself, you ask yourself, why? Why did my parents have this stupid idea to have me? If I hadn't been born into this world, I didn't choose it. If I hadn't been born, so much less suffering. So for the Buddha, it starts there. You never chose to be born into this world, and you didn't choose to be born as this person, you didn't choose to be born in this century, you didn't choose to be born into the family you were born. That's where unsatisfactoriness starts. You could have been born as a better person, more intelligent, more handsome, in a more wealthy family, whatever. Or you could have been born never at all, and for some of us that sounds like the best option, whatever. Next point is getting older. Most of us would rather stay young, but you get older, and then number 3, you get sick, and number 4, you die. Even those of us who rather prefer never to have been born, when it comes to dying, would say, wait a minute, wait a minute, I don't want to die. So those are the 4 basic forms. You didn't choose to be born, you don't want to get older, you don't want to get sick, you don't want to you don't want to die, but all of these will come. Or maybe you die before you ever get sick, but usually we get sick. And then there are 4 other quite easy to understand forms of dukkha. One is you're never with the persons that you want to be around. For example, a romantic love would be one example. You never can get the one that you would want to have. Your love interest. Other boys or other girls always get the better partners. You always feel that you are less popular. And the one that you get is never the one that you really wanted. And today we have Tinder, we have all these opportunities to get the perfect choice. So sometimes you get exactly the person that you wanted. You chose that one and you get it. And the funny thing is, even then, dukkha works. You thought you got the one that you wanted, and 2 weeks later, 2 months later, maybe 2 years later, you realize it wasn't the one after all. So that's a very easy to understand form of dukkha. You never get the one that you want, and the one that you get, the moment you get it, you realize it's not the one that I wanted. And then that's number 7 and 8. That also goes for all the other things. You never get exactly what you wanted from life. Today you could order everything you want from Amazon, and maybe you are, how do you say, excited for a day or two until the parcel arrives, and then you open it. No, it doesn't make me happy. You get exactly what you ordered, and still there's this realization, no, that's not what I wanted after all. And number 8 would be, well, exactly this. So you never get what you want, and what you want is never what you wanted. That's dukkha. That's dukkha. It's basically, I think, what the Rolling Stones sang about when they said, well, I can't get satisfaction. Although in the 21st century we can get basically everything compared to the time of the Buddha. Probably each one of us has a, how do you say, more luxurious life than the Buddha had as a prince. We have smartphones. In Japan we have toilets that automatically clean our behinds if you just press a button. You press a button and a machine cooks rice for you. You have a cleaning robot that cleans the house for you. We have everything, and still we are not satisfied. That's dukkha. How can you get released from that? How can you get liberated from dukkha? The short answer is to just accept, well, that's the way it is. I'm not satisfied 100%. I never get exactly what I wanted. So what? So what? Is there a problem? No, there's no problem with that. It only becomes a problem if you make it into one. If you think, but I'm supposed to get this, I'm supposed to be happy. But as soon as you let go of this idea, I'm supposed to be happy, you realize there's nothing missing. That not only goes for happiness, but also for terms like enlightenment or nirvana. At the beginning of the Buddhist path, you think, I have also Buddha nature, supposedly. So after 3, 5, 10 years, I should be enlightened. But as long as you practice with that attitude, you never get enlightened. You never get to nirvana. Because you have this idea, now I'm samsara, but samsara sucks. There must be a way out of here. And for me, nirvana means the realization, actually samsara is not so bad. Nothing is missing here. The only thing that's kind of in the way, the only thing that's making me suffer is this idea, but I have a right to be in nirvana. My life should be easier than that. As soon as you let go of this idea, there's no problem. There's no problem. So that's what for me is liberation from dukkha. To just accept dukkha and realize it's not so bad. It's not so bad. And interestingly, I mean, people think that after Buddha got enlightened at 36, so he attained nirvana at that point of time, people imagine that he didn't have any suffering anymore. But when you read the sutras, you hear the Buddha complain about pain in his back, or he died from, how do you say, food poisoning. He had pain at that time. He was suffering from diarrhea at the end of his life. Interestingly, even after his enlightenment, he also, from time to time, he had conversations with Mara. One English translation would be the devil. And for me, that's kind of, the devil is something inside of the Buddha. It's not something outside. So having a conversation with the devil means that the Buddha still had doubts, or at least that's how I see the Buddha. That's not maybe the traditional point of view, but when the Buddha had a conversation with the devil, he was dealing with his own doubts. That means that even the Buddha was still facing dukkha after enlightenment. But that for me there's no contradiction there. To accept that's the normal state. There's still this black or dark part in myself. There's suffering in my life, but I accept it. I talk with the Mara, I talk with this dark side in myself. I accept it, I face it. So that for me is liberation from suffering. There are many layers of suffering, many degrees of suffering, and probably all of us, we want to have less suffering. We want to get free of it. But in my view, in my experience, of course, for a limited time you can, take a break from suffering. But if you want to be really free from suffering, that means to, first of all, embrace that reality that you're suffering from. So it's not a movement away from suffering. You go to a meditation center and then for 30 minutes, for an hour or so, you can forget all of your suffering. Maybe even if that's the case, you will get back to your life, to the reality that you're suffering from. So in Zen, it's more the opposite approach. Get closer to what you're suffering from. Get so close that there's no separation anymore. And if there's no separation anymore, there's not me suffering from that anymore. But it's only, for example, in the cane, there's only pain. There's only pain. But when the separation disappears, there's nobody suffering from the pain. And I think that's true for many forms of suffering, that rather than kind of try to get out of there, we need to get closer to it. And of course, not all forms of suffering we need to accept as they are. Sometimes we also need to work with them, try to change ourselves or try to change things in our environment. But also for those changes to occur, we need to get closer to it. There's something in our family that's causing us to suffer rather than try to kind of get away from it, get closer to it. What is it that causes the problem? At work, whatever. Get closer to the root of the suffering. Allow yourself to, be swallowed by suffering. I often use the metaphor of a meadow and sheep. And originally I used this metaphor to explain of what's happening during meditation. So meditation, we often think, I'm gonna sit and I'm gonna have a peaceful mind. But what's happening, to the surprise of many beginners, is you hear meh, 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 meh from here and there. There's all these sheeps making a lot of noise. There's black ones, white ones. And the first thing you think is, my role is to play the shepherd and silence the sheep. And I need to separate the white ones and the black ones. But you're not successful. The more you try to do that, the more chaos the sheep cause. One thing you can do is, for a while, become the sky and just watch what's happening on the meadow. You don't touch the sheep, you don't try to control them, you just allow them to be. And usually they get much more peaceful. And I would say that you should not stop even there, because at that point where you are the sky, there's still this distance. You're watching from the distance. Allow yourself to be the meadow. That means you allow the sheep to trample on you, to feed on you, to take a dump on you. You allow all of that, please. I'm here for you. So that's true for thoughts and emotions that come up during Zazen, but that's also true for all the other things in our life. For example, the things that we suffer from, the sheep that make them suffer, rather than try to control them and rather to take a distance from them, become the meadow for them. And at one point, these sheep, they are fed enough. They are full, and then they take a nap. But for that to happen, you need to become the meadow for the sheep. For some reason, I got into Zen meditation. Probably the first thing was that I discovered I have a body. Everybody knows that you have a body, but if you had asked me when I was 16, where are you? Who are you? I would have pointed to my head, the brain that's thinking in here. That's me. Or maybe I'm something outside that's connected to the brain, whatever. I never thought that everything that comes below my neck was really a part of myself. So in school I was always sitting like this or laid back. And what surprised me about Zen is actually everything felt different when I just sat straight for 15 minutes, maybe half an hour. And of course I knew that to live I need to breathe, but I never felt my breath. 16 years of my life I'd never felt my breath. And for the first time I felt myself breathing in, breathing out, and was a big discovery. How come that something that was so close had completely escaped my attention? Or that bird that probably had sung from morning the whole day, for the first time I hear the bird that's singing outside the window. What's the role of meditation or Zazen? Well, the official answer in my school is it's good for nothing. Zazen is good for nothing, but that's exactly why we do it. To get us out of this mind, I want this, I want that. I want to improve myself. I want to get enlightened. I want to get to nirvana. Zazen, in short, means to take a break from that game. Stop collecting points, even enlightenment points, even dharma points. You quit doing that. And in theory, you don't even need to do sitting meditation. You could just live your whole life from morning to night without worrying about the points that you collect in the game. But with most things we do, there's a result. For example, to work. When you work, you get a result from that. You get something from studying, even cleaning up your room. As a result, your room is cleaner. So it's very easy to get attached to the result. While with sitting, ideally, there's nothing after 1 hour that you gain. Maybe in the beginning you feel something is changing. I'm more relaxed now. I'm more quiet. I become a more stable person. It also helps me to be more harmonious with the people around me. And all of that is true, and also it's important to a certain degree. But after a couple of years, do you get to a point where you maybe have the feeling, well, even if I sit, it doesn't change me so much anymore. But exactly that's the point, to continue then to just do it, to just return to this point that's good for nothing, where you can't get any points. You don't gain any points, but that's the, how do you say, the precious thing about this practice. You don't gain anything, and that's okay. When you sit for half an hour where you don't have to achieve anything, not even satori, not even samadhi, not even a quiet mind. It's even okay if thoughts are drifting through your mind. You don't worry about that. You allow that to happen. So that's for me the meaning of meditation. A time where you don't have to achieve anything.
Would you say in that there's peace or freedom in that?
Yeah. That's ultimate peace. That's ultimate peace. One important element of Buddhism and Zen is mindfulness. It's also the seventh part of the eightfold path, right? Mindfulness. Being in the moment, being in everything that you do. So when you clean your room, you just clean it like that, but you're really in there, in the cleaning. When you sit, you're not just sitting in a kind of drowsy state, but you're completely mindful, aware. When you sit at work, you're working mindfully. That means you're doing exactly what you do. Your mind is not somewhere else. A lot of people have heard about mindfulness, they understand it's important, but in my view, there are also traps of mindfulness that some practitioners seem to be not aware of. What's the trap of mindfulness? For example, when you eat, you understand? I need to be mindful when you eat, so you close your eyes, you chew and chew and chew, you count how many pieces of carrots are in the soup, and that moment you think you're mindful, but your mind is somewhere else. You completely lost track of what's happening around you. You're so mindful when you clean and you brush with the broom that you fall over your own feet. So sometimes it's also important to let go of this idea, I need to be really mindful, and just do it. So I often told my students, when you clean the dishes, don't do it mindfully, but clean the dishes. And the idea behind that is, if people try to clean the dishes mindfully, they do it with this idea that I have to do it somehow extra mindful. And that moment you're not really cleaning them anymore. You're kind of observing yourself while you clean the dishes. So there's an extra you, kind of the observer somewhere up there. Just clean the dishes. Of course, when I say just clean the dishes, it doesn't mean that you should be distracted and be doing something else while you clean the dishes. Clean them 100%, but even forget about this idea, I need to be mindful, I need to be mindful. Just do it. Just do whatever you do.
Is the goal of that to be one with what you're doing? Because there's typically this sense of separateness, me here and the dishes there, and I am washing the dishes outside myself, but through that, just doing it, there's more of a oneness with what you're doing.
You could say that doing things mindfully means to be one with what you do. But then, of course, some people might ask, how do I know when I'm one? And the answer is you don't know. You know when you're two. But if you're one and then you ask yourself, is this now the state of oneness? Then you're already out of there. So it would be another trap to think, I need to become one, I need to become one. You will never become one as long as you try. Forget about even this idea of becoming one or being one. Just do it. Just do it. And the moment you forget about all the stuff, you are one without knowing. Same about being a Buddha. The moment you become a Buddha, you don't know anything about Buddha. You've completely forgotten about Buddhahood or Buddha nature, enlightenment, nirvana, all of that disappears. The same with being one. Of course, it's important to be one, but forget about being one as well. What's the ego and what's Buddha nature? Buddhism says that basically this world which we live in is a world that we constructed. And probably modern psychology would agree that none of the stuff that I see around me exists exactly the way I see it. It's an idea I have of the things, an idea that I need several years to form. For example, cars, trains, trees, grass, the sky. But I see it, well, the way I grasp it. So we construct the world, we tell ourselves a story about the world, what's happening outside there, who my father is, who my mother is, who I am. And ego is basically the story that I tell myself about, well, this person on the stage that I constructed, or kind of the script that I write for that person. And the reason that the ego can become a big problem is that everybody thinks that this person that I identify with is, well, the most important one. The whole movie, the whole story is about this person. But because we all identify with different persons, and also we construct different stories, well, we clash with each other. Nobody except ourselves thinks that this person is the most important. Nobody appreciates us the way we would wish to be appreciated. That's ego. That's what I would say is ego. Kind of the idea, the presumption that this person that I call myself is the most important, that the whole story or the whole movie, whatever you want to call it, is about this person. So what is Buddha nature? Traditionally in Buddhism, Buddha nature means the potential of each living being to become a Buddha at one point. In Zen, you don't understand it that way. In Zen, you would say, right now your reality, the reality you're living right now, is Buddha nature already. This moment when I speak, Buddha nature is speaking. This moment when you watch and listen, Buddha nature is watching and listening. So, using the metaphor of the story or the movie, Buddha nature would be the screen where the movie takes place. Buddha nature is what becomes before you construct the world, but what needs to be there for a world to appear in the first place. So, in the Heart Sutra, which is a very basic text in Zen, there's this phrase which says, there's no eyes, no ears, no nose, no tongue, no body, no consciousness, and there are no things that you can see, nothing to hear, nothing to smell, nothing to taste, nothing to feel, nothing to be conscious of. The whole reality that you constructed, it doesn't really exist. Buddha nature, in my view, is what becomes before that. So, you can say there's no eyes, no ears, no nose, and so forth, but you could also say, actually, those eyes and ears and nose and tongue, those are the eyes and ears and nose and tongue of Buddha nature. Right here in this moment, Buddha nature is seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting. The difficulty with Buddha nature is when you explain it like this, you make Buddha nature already into something. So Buddha nature becomes part of the story, becomes part of the map. So in Zen, one of the famous koans is about the Buddha nature of a dog. A monk asks his teacher, does even a dog have Buddha nature? And the textbook answer would be yes, of course. All living beings have Buddha nature, even dogs and cats have Buddha nature. But the Chinese master, his answer is or Chinese Wu means, well, no or nothing. There's no Buddha nature. And well, the point of the koan is, how can that be? All of the sutras teach that all of us have Buddha nature. How can this Chinese master say that there's no Buddha nature? And the point of the koan is, of course, something that you shouldn't explain. But if I explain it just a little, Mu means let go of this theoretical concept that you have of the Buddha nature and become one with, well, Mu. And Mu in this case would be the ungraspable. Start trying to grasp Buddha nature, but rather get in touch with that which is watching and seeing and smelling and tasting, feeling, being conscious in this moment. What is it? What is it? What is it? What is Zen? Well, there's two possible answers. One is, Zen is one school of Buddhism. It developed in China about 1,500 years ago. Usually they say that it was the Indian monk Bodhidharma who brought Zen from India, and when he met the Chinese emperor, and probably it's a made-up story, but for the identity of Zen Buddhists, it's an important story. Bodhidharma was supposed to have had an interview with the Chinese emperor, and the Chinese emperor had built lots of temples. He had supported monks and nuns. He had the Indian sutras translated into the Chinese language, and he asked Bodhidharma, first of all, what virtues have I accumulated by all that I've done for Buddhism? And Bodhidharma said no virtues at all. And the emperor was surprised and asked Bodhidharma, well, what is the holiest thing, the one holy truth of Buddhism? And Bodhidharma says, it's open and wide, there's nothing holy. And the emperor lastly asked Bodhidharma, who are you? Who are you to talk to me in that way? Bodhidharma said, I have no idea. And then he went to Shaolin to sit for 9 years in a cave until his first student came. And at first Bodhidharma wouldn't even look at him. Only after the student chopped off his arm to demonstrate his motivation, his willingness to study with Bodhidharma, he turned around and the student asked, my mind can't find peace. Please give peace to my mind. And Bodhidharma said, well then, show me your mind. Bring that mind to me. And the student says, I can't find it. And Bodhidharma says, there, your mind already has peace. That's the story about how Zen started in China. And Bodhidharma is also credited with saying that we don't rely on the sutra. That's the difference between Zen and all the other Buddhist schools. They all rely on this sutra or another sutra, because there's lots of scriptures in Buddhism. And few Buddhists study all of these scriptures. There's too much. So they concentrate on one. For example, the Lotus Sutra, or a sutra that concentrates on the Buddha Amitabha, whatever. And Zen says basically forget the sutras. Follow the example of the Buddha. That means sit. Sit, sit. And of course it's not only about the sitting, but being aware in all of what you do during the 24 hours of the day. So Zen is the school in Buddhism that says, well, if you don't become Buddha, you won't find the Buddha anywhere. You don't find him in the scriptures, you don't find him in the temple halls. It's not about the statues. You have to manifest the Buddha in daily life. And that's, well, the historical development, but you could say that actually, well, Zen isn't part of Buddhism at all, because you don't have to believe in Buddhism. You don't have to believe in the teachings to do that. You could do it as a Christian, you could do it as a non-religious person. So you could say, and some people do that, that Zen is kind of the core of Buddhism, but it's not part of Buddhism. You could also, well, take it out of there, so to say. Remove the religious taste of Buddhism altogether. In China, Zen developed into 5 different schools, and Rinzai and Soto are the 2 that exist until today in Japan. Soto is my school, Rinzai is the other school. Rinzai is famous for using koans, so you don't just meditate, but the teacher gives you a question. One famous question is, 2 hands clap. What's the sound of 1 hand clapping? And well, obviously 1 hand alone doesn't make a sound, but you have to somehow produce an answer. You have to give an answer to that question. And then there's hundreds of these questions. So in a way, the teacher drives you into a corner, or he tries to, how do you say, get you into a state where all of your logical thinking doesn't get you anywhere. And in Soto, you don't use these questions. It's all about sitting. And in the beginning, at least that was the case for myself. You think, well, you meditate to become a Buddha in the future, to get enlightened, become a Buddha in the future. But what they tell you in Soto is sitting is good for nothing. You don't even get enlightened. You will never become a Buddha. And then the question, of course, is, well, why do we sit then? So in a way, you could say that in Soto, the practice of Zazen itself is the core. What am I doing here? Why am I doing this? And while the official textbook answer would be, well, because sitting itself is an expression of Buddhahood. When you just sit without the idea of gaining anything from that, you are already Buddha. But when this textbook answer becomes an intellectual understanding, it's also a trap. So the idea of Soto is to get, well, behind this intellectual understanding that sitting itself is an expression of enlightenment, and well, to just sit when you sit, to just clean when you clean, to just eat when you eat. That's how I would describe Soto Zen. Zen is all about letting go. If I had to express Zen in one word, you could say it's letting go. Completely letting go of everything. And probably a lot of people are not interested in letting go. It's rather, I want more. And what I have already, I want to keep. Or I want to get rid of this and rather have that. People don't want to just open the grip of their hands and let go. I'm afraid you can't really, how do you say, force people to understand that letting go is a good thing. It's just that we all suffer, and in the beginning we might think, I suffer because I don't have enough already. I need more to reduce my suffering. At one point you get to the realization it's exactly the other way around. I don't suffer because I don't have enough already, but rather I suffer because I want more and more. It's exactly this mindset that makes me suffer. What gets me out of that mindset? Well, letting go. I don't need more. I rather need less material stuff and less mental stuff. So how do you do that? For those who practice the Dharma, that can be a very difficult problem. So you understand that letting go is a good thing. You say, I want to let go. I want to let go. When you meditate for 30 minutes, you try to not think about enlightenment, nirvana, but rather you want to let go of all of that. I want to let go of everything, especially things like, I don't know, I want to buy this, I want to have sex, whatever. You want to let go of all of that, but you can't. You're still thinking about what you want to eat for dinner, you're still thinking about your girlfriend, you're still thinking about this enlightenment that you hope to have at some point in the future. How can you possibly let go? And my answer to that is, as long as you try to let go, it's never gonna happen. Letting go is nothing that you do. It's not that you sit and then you tell yourself, now I let go, and then it's happening. It's not gonna happen. Forget about letting go. Opening the hands, Uchiyama Roshi, which is the teacher of my teacher's teacher in Antaishi, he has this expression, opening the hands of thought. And that's his expression for Zazen. You open the hands of thought, and when you open the hands, you're ready to accept what's happening right now. So letting go doesn't mean to push things away, but it means to just allow reality to manifest in this moment. And this can be, for example, craving, desires. Allow that to happen without touching it. So don't tell yourself, I need to let go. Rather, allow reality to unfold without getting involved in it. And the reason why in Zen we sometimes practice very intensively, there are the so-called sesshin in Japanese, where you practice for 5, maybe even 7 days and meditate from morning to night, is that usually around the 3rd day or so, you get to a spot where pain, frustration, all of that, doubts about the meaning of what you're doing, get so strong that you have only 2 options. Either you pack your stuff and leave, or you keep sitting on the cushion even though you're so desperate that sometimes it feels as well, it costs your life. The pain and sitting there silently for 1 week without, well, communicating with the people around you, it can make you so desperate that you seriously think, I'm not going to survive this. But then if you keep sitting, you have no other choice than letting go. I'm going to sit here even if it costs my life. And that's not something that you can, do by telling it to do. Zen practice is designed in a way that helps you to get you to that point, and then you just have to allow yourself to keep sitting. I call that you die on the cushion. Of course you don't physically die, but in a way that's what's happening, death on the cushion. And that's what I would call letting go. And in that moment you accept everything. So again, that kind of letting go, even of your life, means to accept your life. And for me, until then, it felt like I'm didn't ask my parents to have me, life sucks, life sucks, life sucks. I was convinced life sucked. And the moment I let it go and said, oh, even if I die, I'm gonna sit here, I realized, but I'm still alive. What was I complaining about all the time? Out of a sudden, life felt like a present, like a miracle. I'm still here. The pain is still there. I'm still not exactly sure why I'm sitting here, but I am sitting here this moment, and it's wonderful. Absolute, total letting go is also total acceptance. And in that moment, there's no dukkha anymore, no suffering anymore. You wonder, what was I complaining about all the time? What was I complaining about my whole life? But in my experience, you have to pass. In the Bible, there's this. I think Jesus talks about the ear of a needle, the eye of a needle. You have to pass through a needle, and it feels like this. A very, very small hole. It's impossible to pass through, but when you pass through, the world looks different. But to pass through, you have to, let go of this ego idea. Let go of this story that you tell about yourself, and I'm this person, I need to take care of this person needs to be happy, this person is not supposed to be in pain, this person. If you accept that this person might die, even today, okay, then be it. And then you're free from the story.
You touched on it a little bit, but I'd like to ask, what is enlightenment or nirvana? And it's seen as like the thing to achieve, or like when you reach nirvana, then you have freedom, then you have peace. So what characterizes that? How can someone experience that peace or that freedom or enlightenment? Even if I know in Zen it's a little about like letting go of trying to get to that destination, but there's still this concept of there being a state of freedom or nirvana.
What is enlightenment? What is nirvana? Maybe it's easier to explain what illusion and samsara is. Illusion is exactly this idea that I'm in illusion now, but I want to get enlightened at one point in the future. I'm in samsara now, but there's nirvana on the other side of the river. I want to get to the other shore. That's what makes us unsatisfied, which makes us suffer. I'm never exactly in the place of time, at the spot in this world where I want to be. Never with the same, exactly with the partner that I want to be with. Never have the job that I would like to have. I never live the life that I want to live. And enlightenment or nirvana means to let go of this idea, even of the idea of enlightenment. So, if you are really enlightened, you don't have the idea, now I'm enlightened, because there's nothing to show off. For example, Dogen, the founder of my school, when he came back from China, he said, I come back with empty hands, I have nothing to show. Not even Buddha Dharma, not even enlightenment. Nothing. But that would be enlightenment. That's not even enlightenment anymore. Nirvana would be to realize, actually, there's nothing but samsara, but there's nothing missing. It's not samsara anymore. There's only this shore. There never was the other shore. I'm already there where I wanted to be. I'm already in the place. And that's the famous here and now. I was always there, but my mind was always on the map. My mind was always yesterday, today, tomorrow, you and me, him, her, and always comparing. Your mind was never at this one point or this one place, which is the only place to be. But that's where you never are. That's, again, nirvana and enlightenment would be to return to that point. And when you return to that point, words like nirvana and enlightenment lose their meaning. That's why in Zen we say there's nothing to gain. There's nothing to gain.